Welcome everybody to the Channel Vision Magazine webinar featuring Dell Technologies, which wants to share the top 3 lead generation programs to engage your SMB customers this year and beyond. I'm your moderator, Bruce Christian, Senior Editor of Channel Vision Magazine. Our presenters are Alicia Bowling, Dell Expert Network Program Manager, and Eric Townsend, Director of U.S. SMB Partner and MSP Marketing at Intel Corporation. So with that, let me turn it over to Eric.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. I'm excited today. We've got Alicia here from the Dell Expert Network. We've got Rachel up on some questions. We're going to have a lot of great conversation today, and just excited for this opportunity just to sit with everyone here today. And I think the topic we're going to talk about is one that a lot of partners I've engaged with lately are really saying, hey, we've got these hybrid workers now. How are we going to actually get some demand gen activities going with them? And so I'm excited to have you here to be able to just have a conversation. I want to remind you just what Bruce says. I go, please make sure if you've got a question, put it in there. Let us know what you're thinking. If that Q&A, if there's something you come up, you're like, gosh, I want to ask about whether it's a technology thing with Dell and solutions they have, if it's Intel, if there's something out there I've heard of Intel, or just this hybrid workforce. What are we seeing from research? We're going to go through a lot of things today on it. But I first want to start with just kind of our conversation today. Why are we here today? We're going to be talking about kind of the marketing landscape first, right? Because whenever we're thinking about engaging kind of in a company, and I say on the business to business side, there's different ways you can do that. So I want to look at kind of the research today, what's showing, and then I want to talk about those 3 kind of advanced demand generation activities for the hybrid workforce. And then really, a lot of partners are always like, gosh, we have so much stuff we have to do in the day, and we only have so much time, and we always want to know about more resources available. So we have Alicia here. It's going to actually walk through things around Dell Expert Network, and I think that's something a lot of partners have gotten access to. If you haven't heard of it before, today you're going to get a great kind of deep dive on it, and then we'll kind of wrap up some additional market materials and once again get to your questions. So make sure you put those in. Quickly, Eric Townsend, work at Intel, work in our U.S. channels group, work a lot with different partners out there. So today you may have heard of the word Intel, and you're like, gosh, big Fortune 500 company. This conversation will be a lot more about the small, medium business space, right? Maybe mid-market, but SMB. Feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. I'm very fortunate because I get to kind of be in the world where you are today, right? And there's a lot of activities going on. So once again, appreciate you being here. But we want to make this a little interactive. So let's start. We have a polling question. It's going to pop up in front of you. And this first polling question is just to get kind of an idea, because everyone here is in a different part of their business, right? And the first question, and you'll see it pop up here, is where do you expect your 2021 sales to end up at the end of the year? So what I'm looking at is, I want you to think about, okay, think of this, we were December 31st, right? So a couple months out. Is it going to be better than 2020? Is it going to be the same as 2020? So think of you were flat year on year, or is it less than 2020? I put the option there if I don't know. Should have some type of forecasting thinking out there, but think of 2021 sales, right? I want you to think about, okay, if we're at the end of December, we're looking back right now, is it going to be something where it's better than 2020, the same as 2020, or a little less than it? So we'll take a couple more seconds on it. Once again, the reason we ask this question is because we really want to make sure that people get a bearing of not everyone is in the same vertical, right? Supporting the same types of customers, right? Not everyone has the same infrastructure. Not everyone has the same service and help desk, right? So we're going to go ahead and show you the results from this specific poll. And as you'll probably see, there's not necessarily one part of the poll that's dominating. We've got about 67% of people that said, yeah, hey, you know what? We have a lot more people that are actually a lot more growth happening in 2020. We got some people out there that are kind of like, I don't know, but at least you get an idea of, hey, we've got different people that are here today, right? I did want to, when we start thinking about kind of where we're going or where we've been, I do want to just talk about some marketing trends that are out there, right? And when we think about digital marketing trends out there, some of these things you would think, okay, man, these are trends that we should be really staring at. And these are ones that are simple, but not always understood, right? And one of that is that when we think of digital marketing, People think of like blogs, they think of ebooks. You can see the graphic here, right? Newsletters, even in-person events, or those are happening, right? But you can see right now that the blogs and that are really big, but the key takeaway that you want to understand is actually on the right. And what this comes down to is getting engaged as many people as possible, customers, right? But when you engage with them, there's three key things you got to make sure that is really being communicated. First, that the company knows your company exists, right? And during this time, over the last 18 months, some companies have closed their doors, right? There's a lot of people who open their doors, but you want to make sure they understand that your company exists. We are open right now. We're here to help serve you. How can we help, right? The second thing we have to make sure clearly communicated when we're doing any type of digital marketing is understanding what problems you can solve, right? People want to jump to kind of the how we do it. How do we solve your IT needs? No, you need to explain them what is a problem they could be having. Like they could be having a security issue. They could be having a security breach, right? So not only do they need to know what your company exists, they need to understand what problems you could solve, but that last one there, knowing how to take the next step. Work with a lot of partners in their marketing plans. They get a great marketing plan together and we say, here's what we want to do. We want to get customers right. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it via the blog, social, right? But then I say, well, what's our call to action? And they go, I don't know, what's a good call to action? So what we want to make sure is that whenever you're putting something on the marketing side, you always have to give them, what is that next step? Is it to them to call? Is it to email? Is it to get to write a post? Whatever it is, you want to make sure you let them know what that next step is. So this goes across all business to business marketing too. Consumers a little different, but I tell you, these three things, when you're looking at kind of reaching that high workforce, you want to make sure that when you're engaging with them, because you want to engage as much as you can, know your company exists, what problems you solve, and what's that next step. Now, I will tell you a lot of focus that's actually happening, right? Right now is in the past we've done, if you think of marketing, right? Think of the 4 Ps, people, it's okay. Well, I will go through and tell maybe people in an email about my product, or I will go through on a social post and talk about our customer success stories, right? There was kind of this specific, hey, there's this channel activity or this marketing activity, and we're going to a specific channel. So whether it's social, whether it's digital, whether it's even mail, right? But there's specific activities. Now what's happening is it's all coming, it's omni-channel, right? So it's where does that customer engage and how do we make sure all the different aspects where that customer engage, I don't just engage them just on mail or just in social or just on newsletter. I want to engage them all. I want to engage the customer in all these different places. And interesting enough, omni-channel, it does cost a little more, but I'll tell you the rate on it, the retention rate, because you're 89%, right? That retention rate of customers, right? 33% without. It's meaning you may do this today. You may be actually doing a marketing activity where you're sending a newsletter out. And you're like, that's one way you're hitting them. You have to say, okay, what are all different ways? And you have multiple ways, multiple channels, called omni-channel, to actually hit that customer. So that's another big kind of focus that people have been having. And I'd say that will definitely go into 2022. Now, we all know that when you're going and doing marketing, you have to have content. Content is something that drives. I would also say that content is king. When you think about kind of B2B marketing and content marketing specifically, it has changed over the years, right? Because of just how people consume content. And this is actually, as of this year, one of the top kind of 7 content pieces that are really grabbing people's attention, having them engage. I highlight the top 3 because these are ones that really can apply in our business to business space. Meaning, first one is video content. And video content is where, think about this doesn't necessarily have to be a production level video. I have a partner of mine that does a Tech Tuesday where he actually has his phone, and a tech on his team will go out and actually do a video on his phone, right? About maybe a new technology they're implementing at a customer, or maybe it's what they have in their own shop, just talking about that. So the video content, once again, great stuff to share. You can use in various social places. You can use it on your newsletter. You can use it on your blog. Very simple to do, easy. Second one is what's your experience right now? It's kind of webinar, right? The one thing I'll talk about webinars that a lot of people have, I was talking to a partner a couple weeks ago. They said, we love webinars. We're not getting a lot of people to come to them. And I was like, okay, well, that's normal nowadays. And they're like, normal? I said, yeah, because most all webinars, you're not going to have a lot of people that are going to be live. And the reason why is there's a lot of people who do things on demand, meaning they may not want to see a webinar on Thursday. They may want to see it on Friday afternoon. They want to see it on Saturday. So think about when you're doing webinars, develop really good content that once again, that you can put out. This is content, even though it's recorded content you have, it can be used in all places, all channels. Have the expectation of about 30 days later, look at that. Okay, what do we have live? And then what did we have on demand? And add that number up. That's your success number, right? Last one is on podcasts. Podcasts are really good. A lot more people doing podcasts nowadays. I just recommend when you're doing podcasts, they can have a lot of value, but we don't make them real long. So a lot of value, but not long. That's the big thing I tell you. So think about a podcast, any ones you listen to, if it's a half an hour long, you're maybe not listening to as much, right? If it's 1, 3, 5, maybe 7 minutes long, it's much easier to consume just because people are busy, right? And once again, on podcasts, you want to make sure that you've got a really clear message. And you could take those last three, right? What's the problem your company's solving, right? And then what's that clear next step? Podcast, you got to make sure that's really, really clear there. I do want to make sure that when you're thinking about all these pieces, and we're going to talk about some really key activities you can go do, be clear that when you do a marketing activity, right? We don't want to make it like a random act of marketing where we go and do it and it's like, hey, we completed it, check mark. We actually want to measure it. Now, measurement over the last multiple years has gone through a cycle where you think I'll just focus, if you see this graphic on the right, email metrics. So like, hey, let's focus on the bounce rate, meaning when I send an email out, did that actually hit the right person? Did it not? Did the content there, did they share it? Did they open it? Did they get delivered, right? Those are, we call them vanity. Those are great metrics, but what I would tell you, this is kind of where people are moving towards on metrics, is they're looking at what are the more active metrics we should be looking at. So instead of maybe a bounce rate, how many leads were actually generated? How many people actually click through on that email instead of just share? How many people actually, when they actually looked at that email, they made some type of engagement with our company, that cost per lead. So meaning that someone came and engaged our company. So we spent $1,000 and we got 10 leads, right? That'd be $100 cost per lead. Depending on the vertical, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's a lot. Some people be like, if $100 and I get leads that are really good, yeah. And that's what we talk about, the lead quality, that last one. When you get leads, you also think about, okay, are they ones that are actually that we're closing, right? People use the word share of wallet. Are we actually getting it where they're actually consuming multiple of our services and products? I could go through each of the other ones. We don't unfortunately have all that time, but I put here just so you can see this on social. You see the red box, those are the ones I really want you to really lean into and figure out. And you're seeing that when we're talking about demand gen, we're really looking at leads that are coming in. We're not doing brand awareness, we're looking at demand. So a lot of times you're doing marketing, you have to make a decision. Am I doing brand or am I doing demand? We're doing demand, we're looking at a lot at leads and saying, how's that actually helping grow our customer base? Not necessarily a brand awareness activity. Now, I will tell you that when you think about marketing, there's lots of stuff you can do. Once again, it comes back to this brand and demand, and you have budget that you can spend. This is a great, I love showing the slide because it's the game board, I call it, right, of marketing. All the stuff you can do. There's, search engine optimization, the search engine marketing, their email marketing, social, website, trials, the different funnel activities you can do, content marketing, all these things. These are all things you can do that are all good, right? But I would say that when we think about marketing and demand gen, it's kind of one activity at a time, right? Today we're gonna talk through some kind of 3 really good demands, but I want to make sure you understand you don't have to do a lot of things at one time, right? Take something that really maybe that works for your company, and more importantly, works for your customers overall. So before we jump into some more content, I want to ask you a polling question, right? Because I want to make sure getting feedback from you. And a lot of times when people are doing marketing, I always ask like what tools you're using. So this question is, what types of demand generation tools are you using to engage your customers? Now, I want to make sure the word engage, I'm not saying sell to your customers, but engage them. So right now, are you engaging your customers through social posts that you're doing online in social media? Are you doing it through sales briefs, or maybe things are being emailed or posted on your newsletter? Are you having maybe product battle cards that your sales teams are using to kind of explain some of your offerings you're having today? Or maybe are you utilizing conversation guides? So that's things where you're actually explaining about a new service or a new solution you have, and it basically explains kind of what are some objections people have, how's it work, things like that. So I want you once again think about what types of demand generation tools are you currently using to engage your customers. Is it social? social posts, sales briefs, product battle cards, or conversation guides. And I want you to think about, okay, what's really helping drive that engagement? Give it another second or so, and then let's look at the results here. Now, as the results are coming up, I want you to think, once again, this whole thing about engaging. So we've got people that are doing sales briefs a lot. We're doing people that are doing social and doing conversation guides. And when I talk about these ones here, of all the there's not one right one, right? When we're thinking about people, everyone can do things differently. And as we jump into these kind of three lead generation activities, I want you to think about there are many ways to drive demand. And this is just a great example of this literally could have a lot. I could sit here for probably an hour and talk about this, but I'll make it quick. Lead generation, right? There's so many things you can do on lead generation. And there's so many different ways that you can actually go through and do solution selling, which is on the right. The key thing I want you to understand is there is not one right way to do it. In your company, in your business, you may have a certain formula that's worked out really well. I have some partners say, look, we do events, we do virtual events, we do live events, we get leads that way, and it's how we follow up, right? I have some partners say, hey, I do a lot where we do retention marketing, and we're really trying to grow share wallet with partners, or with customers, sorry, because we grow that share wallet with those customers, and invariably they're going to help get us leads because they're going to tell people about it. It's going to be referrals. So key thing here is there's not one right way to do it. On the top of that funnel is what we're talking about is getting leads in, right? So you think about direct marketing, you can do advertising, PR, social events, and different market research to drive your activities. As we go down each of these, we could literally take an hour and go through, okay, the lead and discovery meeting, how does that actually work? How do you actually look at opportunity analysis and assessment? How do you look at as far as design and presentation? How do you go through the whole process of getting your solution, your whole solution to the customer? Like I said, today we're going to do a lot of focus on the lead gen side, but realize there's a lot more involved to kind of get them through the entire funnel. So three, right? Top three lead generation activities to drive demand. Thinking about that hybrid team, right? The first one I'm going to give you is a really good one. And you're going to be like, okay, well, I just showed you one funnel, but this one's flipped on its side. And I love this book. There's a book by Joseph Jaffe. He's a great marketing guy. And he basically brings this idea up that everyone here, we just saw the funnel, right? We spend a lot of time getting leads and go down and we get all these time to get people through the funnel. Some people call the funnel awareness, interest, desire, action, right? Or awareness, interest, purchase, however you want to call it, but they get this funnel, right? We spend all this money to get people in the funnel. We get them all the way through, and then we get one or two customers come out and go, great, okay, let's go and drive this. And they say, okay, let's start all over again. Let's spend money to get people in the funnel, and let's do this whole thing where we get one or two out. Jaffe's great. He says, hey, he's like, no. He's like, what you do is you have to understand, if you flip the funnel, turn on its side, you're going to have someone that's going to get through that funnel, right? And then what you have to do is that you don't want to forget about them as a customer, right? So meaning that it's going to sound weird, you can actually get customers from your existing customers, not referrals even. So give you an example. If you go back and you look at your PSA today, right? So if you've got a ConnectWise, if you've got a data PSA, even any customer database you have, there's probably a percentage of that database that are no longer your customer, right? That are basically, hey, maybe they bought a product from you or a service a couple of years back, but you haven't done a lot with them in a while, right? What Jeffrey says, what we have is with the flip the funnel, there's another funnel that you would take your customers through. This is existing customers. Once again, when I say existing, means they bought something from you or they've used your service. They could be existing customers that they're giving you money every month, right? Or they could be ones that are called dormant customers, right? First thing you got to do, again, I'm focused on the big red square, right? Is you have to acknowledge that there actually have been a customer of yours, right? Now, this time here, I'll tell you, around when it gets around the holidays, I have a partner of mine that does a great thing. He actually sends a Christmas card out to everyone, of anyone's ever been a customer of his, anyone. It says, I just want to thank you for being a customer of our company. And we've got a lot of great things going on. We just want to thank you for being a part of our customer family. And invariably, every year he gets leads from that because people maybe hasn't been a customer for a while. And they say, hey, I got that thing in the mail. We actually have a problem we just ran into. Can you guys actually help us? So acknowledging it's customer, right? The second part is creating a dialogue, right? The dialogue part is actually saying that can be something that's on a blog, that can be in a newsletter, can be on a social. You may have like a Facebook or an Instagram, and even TikTok if you have that. But you want to basically go through and say, how do I acknowledge them and then create a dialogue? And a blog is a great one. You can put a blog out there Like we said, that's one of the top ones, right? Put that blog out there, put a couple information, maybe about a customer success story, and then ask, hey, is anyone else going through this? Create that dialogue. And then from there, you want to put an incentive. Now, the incentive is, don't get me wrong, you're not giving free money. You may say, hey, there's a specific assessment that I want you to think about. Maybe it's a security assessment, right? So you get that incentive. So you acknowledge your customer, right? You say, hey, let's create dialogue. You get the blog going. You mention, hey, by the way, we actually have an incentive right now, or an opportunity for you to get a free assessment around your security, where you're actually at. And then the last part is saying, okay, if you get them through this whole part of the funnel, how do you actually activate them? So they say, hey, great, love the assessment. What are you going to do for that customer of yours? Are you going to say, since you're an existing customer, there, is a 10% off on our current, managed security services? I just point this out because it's the new marketing funnel, right? You have a lot of existing customers that because it may not be an active customer, maybe a dormant customer. How do you bring them back in? And also, I do want to make sure we're focusing on retention. This part, you would say this is not really applying. I'm doing demand gen to my existing customers. Yes, we're growing the share of wallet with the existing customers of yours that are the proactively, and we're actually growing share of wallet with your dormant customers. They bought things from you, but they haven't been around in a while. So that's the first one I'll give you. A great thing to think about because it actually works very, very well. Now, the second one I'm having you think about, it's a little bit different, right? And this is a big movement that's happening right now in the business-to-business side. It's been happening for a little while by an organization called LinkedIn, but it's just been getting bigger and bigger. And it's creating communities to raise engagement, right? We've been talking about engagement. That's a big thing. And I asked earlier about what tools you use. But what we're talking about now is I'm going to use another funnel called the social funnel. So not just the demand gen marketing funnel like we've been talking about, now the social funnel. And what we want here is, depending on how advanced you are in your social, right? So I'm not saying everyone's got everything, right? But if you've got a LinkedIn for your company, or you've got a Facebook, or you've got a YouTube page, if you're on YouTube, just let you know, the number one de facto right now, number one for searching. When people go search things online, they're not always going to Google. Number one is going to YouTube because they're searching. And if you don't have a channel out there, I highly recommend it. Could have a whole nother conversation what the channel could look like, but make sure you have that. So when we think about establishing a social funnel, it's making sure that there's a part of participating, managing, and owned, right? And what I'm saying is that the funnels that you have to create around social are multi-layered. You can see this, right? But there's things where you're out there and you're actually participating. You should probably have someone in your company participating in a social community, whatever it is. If it's LinkedIn, great. And it can be communicating via blog, maybe in an industry you're part of, but being participating, right? From there, you can start going into maybe managing, maybe actually having your, where you're maybe a part of a community that's out there. Maybe it's a local community one. So Chamber of Commerce, right? Chamber of Commerce are actually just now where they're actually creating community sites for people to be part of. And what's getting sites, I'm not saying they've got lots of things in them, right? But going beyond just the major names out there, maybe they have a Twitter, LinkedIn, or thing, or maybe they've got some type of LinkedIn. You can connect your ones you're participating in, right? But the managed part is where you're now saying, okay, how am I actually taking those ones that are participating in and starting to say, okay, how do I build ours? So we're getting people to engage in what we're doing out there. A little bit of marketing, right? A little bit of kind of helping your company out. Then we start getting into the own part where you're starting to say, okay, we're going to not just have the major platforms out there, once again, of LinkedIn, of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're going to actually have our own, and we're going to on our. It's not just a website anymore, right? It's a community gathering place, a hub that we actually have. You probably have part of this today, right? Where people go through and they maybe submit in tickets or things like that, but it's a hub. In that hub, you will have it where external customers can engage, right? Where there's some generic content out there, but there's also part of the hub where if you log in, you get a whole nother set of community information and engagement. There's also just, that when we think about owned for communities that are developing that, it's not just external, right? It's not just only members, right? Think of those really good customers you have, but then also inside your company. It's a great place to actually have it. So demand gen, the participating and manage, those would be great. But I'll tell you the owned ones, those where you increase your share of wallet with existing customers. If you're like, hey, how do I get it's our new customers out there participating as an area to do it? And when we talk about communities, I just want to be clear. You want to basically go through and get conversations going. So part of it is not just saying, hey, I've got a login, I'm there, we've got our company page, but how do you actually start and facilitate conversations? And once again, is you see the framework, right? You engage people, you understand their needs, and you recommend. This can come anywhere too. It can come the other way, where you understand their needs, you recommend, and then you engage. There's not one way it starts. You see all the arrows going in different ways. But I do want to point out that when you think about your conversations, you got to really make sure they're more personalized. It's not generic, right? You got to see, okay, what form I'm in, what do they value? I got to be more empathetic to maybe what their needs are. If they're going through security issues, you may have dealt lots of them, they may not have. But the value you can bring around your experiences, your tools, and then also being trustworthy, all these things here make the conversation, right? So as you're thinking about that hybrid worker, they're not always going to be able to be reached in the office, right? They're going to be maybe out in a virtual space. You got to make sure you're creating those conversations there. Now, third one I'll give you, this is a pretty big one, and this is about content, right? We talked about content before and how important that is. With content, we got to really be thinking proactively about this. And why I say this is because a lot of times people are like, yeah, hey, I'm just on a webinar, guys, so we got to build content. And that'll help us. It'll help us as far as engagement. We got to think about content we got to have a strategic plan around what our content is. And you can see the question underneath there, right? Who do you want to reach? How do you want to deliver the content? What type of results do you want to actually achieve? That you got to build a plan. It could be a one-page plan, but really clear on the who, the how, right? And then what the results do you want to see? From there, you'll start saying, okay, well, how do we want to position the content we're going to put out, right? Like, so is it a brand? Is it a demand? How's that actually work? Because if it's a brand, it could be about your value, your company, right? It could be about what you have. When we're saying demand, do we need to maybe look at more how your solution is better than competitors in local markets? Then we talk about value proposition. How do we make sure that content's going to lead to having value to your customers? And how does it kind of stand out from all the other contents being created? Because you're not the only ones going to be doing this. And then finally, what's the business case, right? When we're going to go develop this whole content thing, what is our goals around this? We talk about some targets, but then is there a certain number of leads, certain number of business we want to close? And that will actually help define a lot of your content. So that being proactive with your content is really key. I will tell you that when we think about content marketing in general, it's very, very big. And you can see here, right? Changes that organizations, business to business, have made in response to kind of this last bit of time within the pandemic. Really adjusting their targeted messaging, really, really key. Adjusting even when they put things out. I mentioned before, when you have a webinar, it's not like everyone's going to be there on Thursday at 10 o'clock. No, you may have more people arriving on Friday afternoon. That's a stat. So people are basically just there, right? There's certain times to send information out. There's certain times that they'll receive things better. People change their promotional strategy, your website. You can see all the things that people actually changed. So that strategy piece may not seem like that big a deal, but it's something people kind of take in, because if you get the content to the right person, the right time, that's where they're going to engage with your team and probably be a better lead overall. I will mention this, and it says before, and you've heard me probably say a couple times, but I'll just underline it, right? These are the different types of content types people have been using in 2021. I will tell you that blogs, you see how it's a pretty big and short articles. It's pretty high compared to newsletters and case studies. And people do these, don't get me wrong, but you can see here it says you can expect 67 more leads every month, and it's 67% more leads, sorry, every month if your brand has a blog, right, compared to others that don't. So 67% more. So if you think about in your local area, if you do have competitors, right, you may want to go look and see if they have a blog and what they're putting on there, right? But if they don't, this is where you need to start engaging. It's all about engaging with your customers. The blog creates that conversation. So 67% more leads when you actually go through and put that blog up there and get that engagement actually going. Now, the last one, yep, I'm going to give you a fourth one, right? This is one that I'm a really big fan of. And it's really it's the new sales model. And for some people, when they look demand gen, they're like, okay, how do I actually create demand that's maybe more organic? And so if you think of the old sales playbook, there were a lot of cold emails, cold calling, right? You bought a list. That list you may have got through Chamber of Commerce, you may have gotten from a industry symposium, but you got that list, right? And then we said, okay, maybe we can get some referrals, but we were literally just trying to go with people. Now, the difference is now is there's this whole new sales playbook that's actually out there. And this is where it kind of wraps into some of the stuff we've been talking about with as far as communities and our pieces, but now we're saying is this digital selling model is you're trying to build this audience that you engage with and keep them engaged, right? So you can see here, now we're actually going and engaging with people, building the trust we've been talking about, right? Making sure we're educating people, even having those videos we've talked about. But how do we make sure that we really get people to engage with us? And there's a book called Influencer. I reference it there. It's a great one to understand, but this is a model we have to go to, because with this hybrid workforce, I mentioned before, in the past, you could actually go through and you could meet with your contact because you need to be in the office. Now, if they're not, it's a lot of efficiency of you going out the office, not them not being there, trying to figure out when they're going to be there, all that, where you can engage them, because people engage, once again, not just in that physical setting, but they're in different social platforms. So I mention this just because to know that when you think about the sales model, something like, is it really this new digital system, is it really going to work? And this actually comes from LinkedIn. And the blue bars represent the top salespeople. The gray bars, all salespeople. And you can see there, helps me close more deals in my company. Blue bar, pretty like, right? A lot of everyone's, I love the bottom one where it says, enables me to build strong relationships with customers and prospects. That's on the lower left if you're someone tracking, right? So top salespeople, almost 70% says, enables me to build stronger relationships with customers and prospects. Right? We all know that a lot of times it's not what you buy, it's who you buy it from. So that part of that most people are like, well, if I go digital, I'm going to lose the authenticity of me and who I am. No, you can still, it's still there, right? And then on the right, you can see just about the brands and products and services. You can see here, agree, that's that big blue. The gray is strongly agree. And you can just see people having reach out from multiple channels, right? People being able to be connected with other people that are coming. These are all things in that selling process that actually helps and really kind of grows demand overall. So definitely make sure you kind of think about, once again, you've got all these opportunities, right? Where you can flip the funnel, you got the ways you can do communities, right? You've got the ways these new sales models. So I'd have you think about even when you're doing content, how do I make sure I get that done the right way? So those are kind of the ones that will drive demand. I do mention LinkedIn is a place that you can start all these specific activities at, right? 50% of all the B2B social traffic comes from LinkedIn. Here's the ironic thing, 80% of leads are coming from there too, because that's the easiest thing. People are engaging across all verticals, right? All sizes of companies. I tell you, if you're like, hey, I only have so much time, LinkedIn will be the one that I'd have you kind of go and look at. So that's kind of the where we're at. I do want to take, a little bit of time, because a lot of partners say, hey, it's great. I've got some ideas around marketing, but I'm really needing some support around some other areas within our business. And so I'm super excited because Alicia's here today from Dell Expert Network. And I have a lot of partners, Alicia, that go, during this time, we're starting to kind of re-enter. We have a lot more customers that are coming to us, new customers, and we're just overtaxed. And we need people to help us. So for people that haven't heard of Dell Expert Network, tell us about how your organization helps them.
Yeah, thanks so much, Eric, for taking us through that and kind of doing the pivot here for, how can, MSPs partner with Dell to be more effective and grow their MSP business. So just to preface the whole presentation before we jump into all the benefits, the number one question I kind of get asked by customers and MSPs is, we're really familiar with the Dell Partner Channel. You're talking about the Dell Expert Network. Is that the same thing? Is that different? If it is different, how it's different. So the Dell Expert Network is meant for MSPs who are referring their customers to purchase Dell product, but they aren't actually reselling that hardware. So if you are an MSP who is not in the resale game, either because your margins are shrinking or you're a new MSP or you've just found it's too much of a headache to buy and resell that hardware, but you still want to be incentivized for your referrals for being kind of that brand advocate in the market for Dell, then the Dell Expert Network is the program that you would fit into. And we can kind of go into the first benefit of the program, and that will be receiving a dedicated account manager. So when we were leading focus groups, when we were creating this program, the number one feedback we got from MSPs and those focus groups was it's so important to us to have one person at the vendor who's taking care of our business and taking care of our end users. It's really frustrating when you need to order something or you're having a problem, specifically around supply chain right now. Everyone knows that it's very hard and difficult to find things that are in stock. I just need someone I can call to help me navigate that landscape. So that is the main benefit in our program, is you will have that dedicated account manager that's based in either Nashville, Tennessee or Round Rock, Texas. Moving forward, we have a couple of shortcuts and support that just save you time more than anything else. The one I'm going to kind of call out most today is our Dell TechDirect portal, because it's one that I continue getting feedback from MSPs who take advantage of it, that it's just far and beyond helpful to their business. It is a portal where you can log in and self-log support tickets for your end users. So if you've already sent a tech on site or done a remote diagnosis of whatever issue your end user is having, you can log into that TechDirect portal and self-dispatch parts to yourself, self-log a support ticket to save you or your techs that, it may only be 20 or 30 minutes to pro support, but it will save you that time so you can get to a resolution faster. The screen we're looking at right now is our DEN MemberNet portal, which is a tool you'll have access to once you enroll in the program. It's essentially one pane of glass to see everything in your account that's happening. So you'll be able to see your reward status, your pending rewards. You'll be able to see which tier of the program you're in. You'll be able to see your end users' orders. So, if you made an order for one of your customers a year ago, you can go in there and say, oh, I think I bought them Optiplexes, but I'm not sure what the configuration is, and we want to make sure they're on a standardized platform. So you can log into this portal, pull those order numbers and provide that to your account manager and say, hey, this was the order number from last year. I'm just needing to replicate this for new employees or whatever that may be. So again, just a single pane of glass in the portal. On the next screen, you'll see one last benefit of the portal, which is a lot of thought leadership content and resources that we upload in there. So this is free to download for you or your techs. We have, I think, about 40 white papers and one-pagers in there right now over all kinds of items dealing with Dell, dealing with Intel, dealing with our Dell Financial Services options. So that's a great place to start if you just want to research and expand your knowledge of what the offerings through Dell are. And maybe, we have a benefit that we're offering you that you may not be taking advantage of currently. So that's a great place to go. We're updating those quarterly. So I would say log in at least once every month, every other month, to check out that resources tab and see what's new. All of the new assets that have been uploaded in there will always appear at the front of the list, so you don't have to scroll down and think, have I read that or have I not? We'll make it abundantly clear to you that those assets are new. So moving on to our fourth benefit is one that MSPs love, of course. So, you're referring business to us, so we want to reward and incent you for doing so. So anything that your end users purchase through Dell, you'll receive a base 3% back on. You can receive a bonus 2% if that end user chooses to utilize Dell Financial Services lease option. So 3% back on everything, 5% back if they choose to utilize Dell lease, and you can earn up to $5,000 a quarter in rewards. Now, a lot of MSPs use these funds for their own internal technology upgrades. They use them as door openers or conversation starters for new potential end users or leads. They use them for demo kits for their techs to practice on if there's a new generation of processor, or laptop, or desktop, or server that has been released, and you want to create a demo environment at your, within your internal environment to train new techs, or, deploy new software to see, is this something we want to take on? Is this something we want to add to our stack? So it allows you to purchase demo equipment at no cost to you so that you can, try those things out before you deploy them to your end users. And just expanding on that Dell Financial Services piece that I was speaking about before, we do offer Dell Financial Services to all of your end users, granted if they are approved. So that's always a caveat that I like to throw in there. So an additional benefit with Dell Financial Services on top of the 2% bonus rewards for you as an MSP is that you can actually send in your own statement of work to your account manager to be added onto your end user's lease. So let's say that they're purchasing or leasing 10 desktops and you have certain services, implementation costs that you'll be charging them. You can send us your statement of work. We can add that into your end user's lease. They pay Dell back over the term of the lease, whatever they choose. We have 12 to 60 month options. And then Dell pays you in full upfront, so that you don't have to worry about, submitting an invoice to them and waiting net 30 terms for them to pay that bill. As soon as that equipment ships, you'll receive a wire transfer for your services from that customer. So I know that's a lot. I'm sure not every single benefit resonates with every single MSP, but my contact information is on the next slide. So I'd love to offer that to you guys. Please reach out to me directly if you have any questions about the program, if you'd like to get enrolled, if you have any questions about things that I covered today. And, I know every MSP business model is very nuanced. It's not black and white. So that's feedback I get a lot is, hey, Alicia, this is my business model. This is how we work with our customers. How would we interface with this program? Or, how involved will our account managers be in the transaction? Those are all things that we understand, and I can help you walk through that, get you assigned an account manager, enroll your account. You can also visit our landing page at dell.com/expert network. It will do a little bit more deep dive into the benefits I've mentioned today, and give you a chance to click around and self-discover. But Eric, I'll pass it back over to you to wrap us up and then move us into Q&A.
Yeah, I'll say let's do so for folks. You're probably all the stuff she went through. If you've got questions, put them in the Q&A because we're going to have some time for that. Just quickly, a couple of resources we have, on top of, so they get all those benefits that was talked about for Den, right? On top of that, we've got our Intel partner program and it gives you on the additional pieces. Now, I'll tell you that all the Dell great product information you're getting the Den. On the Intel side, it's more just the general technology. So we've got a lot of things there, but intel.com/partner alliance. I will mention that on the marketing side, we get a lot of people saying, gosh, well, how am I going to really take that next step on my marketing? And, the content piece, I may not have all the content. I do love, I'll be honest with you, on the Den portal, I've had a lot of partners that are part of Den. They say what they do is they get those white papers and that actually fuels their blogs. So if you're like, gosh, I don't know how to write a blog, there's such great content out there. And like I said, Den portal's got, I think it was like 30 or 40 that I saw in there, right? Grab that and that can feed your content that you have. But if you're looking for more of like, hey, I've got some great social things I want to do, but I want to have a little social post, marketingsuite.intel.com, you can get it there. And there's a lot of great things. I really think we've got a lot of great things to look at and talk about. So I want to make sure, pass over to Rachel. I'm going to put the right content. But Rachel, you want to talk us through our Q&A, what we got right now?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, you guys. We've got quite a few questions here. Alicia, I want to throw the first one to you. And the question is, what does it cost to join the Dell Expert Network?
Yeah, so the cost to join the program is free. As you saw on that slide that I flashed up there with the MemberNet portal, we do have different kind of levels of the program, if you will, that as your end users spend more, you kind of level up and have access to additional benefits. The cost to join is $0, but you'll hit our premium tier after $10,000 in sales in the year, and then you'll hit our elite tier after $100,000 in sales for the year.
Awesome. Awesome. Eric, I've got a question for you. And you touched on this a second ago in content, but I kind of want to expand on it. A pretty standout stat you talked about today was 67% more leads if your company has a blog. That's pretty huge. Yeah. And everyone knows that, an attractive and relevant blog has a great consistent flow of content.
Mhm.
You mentioned a little bit the great resources that you have at Dell Expert Network,
Yeah.
but can we talk about, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every
Right.
time with content. Where can folks go for finding and creating the most relevant content?
Yeah, so I'll tell you this, the stuff that's on the Den portal I kind of like because it actually has a mixture of business and technical. And I love what you said as far as about the consistency. So some people, they get hung up on, I gotta have a blog post every day. That's not necessarily the case, because on a blog, remember, you want to have content, but you want to have communication. People post, adding their thoughts on it. So from a where to go get content, the Den's got a lot of good pieces on there as far as about the solutions you can go implement. Some of the new things that are coming out on our Interpartner Alliance. We've got things around technology. So that part, Rich, you mentioned about not reinventing the wheel, I'm totally on, because we sometimes try and create blog posts and we just try and say, okay, what should I start with? What should I talk about? And it's like, there's already stuff there, and you can literally, people use the word scraping, where they'll just go and grab the specific content, have it out there, right? You can do acknowledgement to where you got it, but a blog too isn't like something where it's like 10 pages long, like 1,500 words, 1,000 words. That's what you're looking at. It's not super long. So Den portal, our Interpartner Alliance, go there. There's a lot of great business and technical content available.
Awesome. I think that's so important because it can be daunting, the thought of all that content creation, and it could literally be a full-time job, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
So utilize these resources for that. Eric, I've got another question for you. And you mentioned too that part of this omni-channel marketing and bringing the customer in and keeping them part of the conversation is to facilitate conversations.
Yeah.
Any tips on how to gather the most relevant topics for an MSP specific customer base?
Yeah, great one. Is actually through their customers. So I had this conversation literally in the last 24 hours. So because like a partner's customers actually has the best stories because it's their peers, right? If someone's coming to their site like, hey, I've got a problem like this. So I always say, like, going and creating content with your customers, everyone's got, raving fans. There's that they just love what they do. They love the people. They love the text. They love everyone. So those people, you want to say, hey, can I just get a little time with you? And you can just talk about the story of why you like our company. So that content you get it from your customers, because those, call them success stories internally, right? Those success stories give you more credibility, right? More credibility you have, more trust you'll actually have with new customers coming in. So go to your new customers, and it's nothing too huge. Like I said, the Tech Tuesday, the guy's literally doing a video, and he's been in a server room with a customer site, and he was talking about, hey, yeah, we put this new server in. It's got this new Dell server, and here's what it's actually got. It's got 14G. Here's all stuff that comes with it. Here's the storage. And it was not actually about, like just the technical, but then he kind of asked the customer, so how's it going to help your business? And he said, we're going to be able to have, more customers. We're going to do all this stuff. So bringing in the customer, I think, helps a ton. It adds more credibility to you as a partner. If you're actually, once again, you're out there, like that's that thing of, I'm out there, here's the problem I'm solving. Hey, remember, by the way, here's so you can follow up with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Those customer testimonials speak volumes. I think, definitely upon approval of your customer to use them, pepper them through your marketing materials, because it really does speak volumes there. Alicia, I've got a question for you. You went through a number of benefits for the Dell Expert Network. And also, I think what was really important that you noted is that, come to us. We'll also take all these benefits and we'll customize it to what makes sense for you. But I like kind of to high level things too, for quick understanding. If you had, say, 5 Dell Expert Network members in a room, what are they going to say is their number one benefit if they had to choose one? What do they like the most?
Yeah, I would definitely say it'd probably be a pretty close tie, but I would say probably their account manager is going to be number one, closely followed by those rewards. I mean, we got some guys that track those rewards like very, very closely. They know exactly when they're coming in, exactly when they're going to hit their count, and exactly what they're going to spend those funds on. But I think, to get those rewards, you have to have an effective account manager that can make those transactions flow successfully and can help you close those deals with your customers. So yeah, I'd say the account manager is probably number one, closely followed by the rewards.
Awesome.
And Lisa, I was going to add on to, because I think one thing that the account managers at Dan do differently than probably other folks is that once you have that account manager, it's not like they know your history, right? Like I'm just thinking of some of the partners that are in Den, like Esteban, right? He was at that lunch, and he was like, he always talks about, I was at one lunch and I was talking to a customer, all of a sudden they needed something, right? And he sold something similar for another customer. He just walked to the table, called his den rep and said, hey, by the way, I just need to get 5 of what I ordered for this customer. The rep already knew that one. They already had that relationship. They have that history. And it's like, it makes it so much faster. I'm not sitting on the phone. I'm not re-educating someone of what configuration I like or who the customer is. That I think is a secret sauce of like a Den account manager. So
yeah, it's nice because you have a direct phone number and a direct email. It's not a general sales queue inbox that you're going into or a general sales number that you're calling every time. It's you have their direct phone number and direct email, and you're connected with them on LinkedIn, sometimes connected with them on other social media platforms, depending on the strength of the relationship that you have. So yeah, it's about building relationships, and the stronger that relationship is, and the more you put into it, again, the more you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's a true invested partner on both sides, which I think is the model that really works here. Eric, I've got a question for you. You spoke a little bit earlier on, but I think it's really important to make time for measuring your activities.
Yeah.
A lot of times, marketing is especially with a small business, it's not the first thing that people spend the time on, but I do think that measuring those activities is so important. You have to know what's working so you can know what to do next time, to know what to spend your money on.
Oh, yeah.
So in a typical program, what would you say is the amount of time an MSP should give it out in the field to know if it's working or not? And I know that it can be all different. So maybe we'll just say LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah. So LinkedIn one. So LinkedIn, if you do stuff through LinkedIn, I kind of say there's like, Rachel, there's like an owned activity and a paid activity. So like if I did a LinkedIn promotion on my side, right? So let's say I'm going to just do my posts and people in my company posts. What I generally am going to do is that one's going to be probably a bit longer. So I'm going to go put a post there. So let's say we have a new offering around as a service, right? We're going to do something as security as a service. I'm going to have all my sales teams. I'm going to have everyone. I would try to have everyone in my company, but all the key people out there that I think is really good in LinkedIn, I'm going to have all of them start posting. And I'll probably have about 3 posts. I'll have one that starts kind of in week 1. Maybe I may do 1 in week 1. I'll probably do 2 in week 2. And what happens is that we're going to track that longer because it's one that it's limited, right? When I talk about a paid activity, we can do LinkedIn emails, right? LinkedIn emails, and those ones actually are paid, but they're much more targeted. But whenever you have a targeted activities, you actually want to measure like faster, meaning, hey, so you could say, hey, I want to buy 100 LinkedIn emails. I want to target to this set of customers that has this type of business in this area. I mean, it could be very specific. And that one you want to probably do, I would say, in a week. Send it out. May have two messages go out. Send a week and see how that actually goes. I think the big thing that, Rachel, I think about when we've had so many $1 million mistakes, I call them, where like we did marketing on something and we're like, oh man, if we could just gone back, that would have saved us a good bit. And luckily in the SMB space, it may not be as much money, but time is more valuable, right? So I would just tell you that really pick the things that you really feel like have that will work for your customers, right? So whatever you're going to go at, there's a lot of research out there online that you can say, hey, if we're going in marketing to a dentistry or we're marketing to professional services, there's certain areas that they go to get information. Certain things you can do, but I would say if it's a targeted activity, you want to have shorter, so it could be like a 7 to 14 days. If it's more broader one that you're doing with more people involved, and you're a bigger audience, because it's just a broadcast net you're doing, it's probably going to be, probably like a 1 month thing.
Okay, awesome. Very helpful to have that structure there. That is about all the questions we have. I'm going to pass it back to you, Bruce, to do some closings.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That's very informative. I want to thank you all. Our thanks to Intel Corporation's Eric Townsend, Director of US SMB Partner and MSP Marketing, Rachel Dodson, MSP Program Manager, as well as Alicia Bowling, Dell Expert Network Program Manager. Thank you all. And now from all of us at Channel Vision Magazine, thank you for attending. Have yourself a safe and prosperous day.